A black man faces humiliation in first class from a flight attendant on the airline he secretly owns. James Carter built this company from nothing. On this flight, he's treated like an imposter, mocked, targeted, pushed to the limit by a woman unaware he signs her paycheck. What unfolds when the man they try to silence speaks with undeniable proof? Ever seen someone fight back without raising their voice? Hit like if you've been underestimated. Subscribe to Story Hub for stories where dignity is power, not optional. Let's start at seat 1A, with the woman who thought she could erase him. The gentle hum of first-class passengers settling in filled the cabin. Champagne glasses clinked, leather seats creaked, and fresh linen mixed with the faint scent of costly cologne. It was the usual quiet luxury, a haven for those who'd earned their spot. But James Carter knew his place without being told. He walked down the aisle with a calm, steady stride. His charcoal gray suit, perfectly tailored, fit his broad frame effortlessly. No flash, no grand show, just quiet confidence from knowing who he was and what he'd built. His polished leather briefcase clicked softly with each step. No gold chains or gaudy accessories, just a man whose presence demanded attention. As James reached row 1A at the front, his eyes briefly swept the cabin. He felt the weight of stares from settled passengers. The sharp gazes of the wealthy and privileged always noticed someone who didn't fit their mold. But James didn't care. He was here for business, not approval. Then he met her presence. Sarah Thompson, lead flight attendant, stood in the galley, her uniform immaculate. Her blonde hair was pulled tightly, almost painfully so. Her eyes scanned the cabin like a hawk hunting prey. When they landed on James, they narrowed slightly. Her polite, professional smile wavered briefly, then returned, stiff and forced. "Well, it seems they're letting anyone up here now," she said, just loud enough for her colleague to hear, her voice edged with contempt. It wasn't a mistake or slip, it was intentional. Her words and lingering glance made it clear he didn't belong. James felt the sting, but showed no sign. He hadn't built his empire to be rattled by a comment. He didn't react or acknowledge it, continuing his steady, unfazed walk as if nothing happened. Quiet snickers rippled around him, nervous glances exchanged among passengers who overheard. The elderly man in a pinstriped suit and the woman with a pearl necklace watched, but no one spoke up. James handed Sarah his boarding pass. She took it, her fingers barely touching his as she scanned it. A flicker of doubt crossed her face. Then she returned it with a tight, dismissive smile. As she turned away, James did what he'd mastered over years. He smiled faintly, not for her comfort, but because her small-mindedness didn't define his worth. He wasn't here to prove anything or seek approval. With calm, deliberate motion, he settled into seat 1A, rightfully his. The plush leather embraced him as if it had been waiting. He set his briefcase beside him, its weight anchoring him. This was his space, his seat. No one could take it. But as the engines roared and the plane taxied, James sensed this was just the start. Sarah wasn't done with him, not by far, and she had no clue who she was dealing with. What happens when the man they push out forces them to face the truth? Stay tuned to find out. Sarah stood still. James waited at row 1A, his boarding pass clearly marked, calm and silent, a silence heavy with weight. Sarah stared, smile gone, eyes steady. "Pass," she said sharply. He handed it over. She took it with 2 fingers, as if it might stain, held it to the light, tilted it, flipped it, squinted, then passed it to the junior attendant. "Scan this," she ordered. The junior nodded, scanned the barcode. Beep. Green light. Valid. James stood still, unsmiling, watching her. Sarah gave no nod, no thanks, nothing. "Again," she snapped. The junior, confused, glanced at her, then rescanned. Beep. Green again. Still valid. Sarah's jaw tightened. Her earlier smile vanished. She met James's eyes, her voice icy. "People try sneaking into first class all the time," she said, loud enough for 3 rows to hear. "You'd be shocked what they pull these days." Her words lingered like toxic smoke. She didn't say, "You don't belong," but she didn't need to. James let the silence grow, then said evenly, "It scanned green twice." His voice held no edge, just truth. Sarah's nostrils flared slightly. She glanced at the pass as if it mocked her, then at him, then back. A man 2 rows back leaned out, pretending to check the overhead bin but watching. The pearl necklace woman looked up from her phone, lips pursed. No one spoke. They watched like it was a performance, with James as the outsider. Sarah turned to the junior, held up the pass, shook her head. "These things glitch sometimes," she said. "We can't be too careful." The junior opened his mouth, then closed it. Sarah handed the pass back, fingers avoiding James's. "Go ahead," she said flatly. Not "welcome aboard" or "thank you, Mr. Carter." Just "go ahead," like he barely passed. James took the pass, tucked it into his pocket, adjusted his sleeve, and didn't look at her. He didn't need to. He stepped forward, calm, set his briefcase by his seat, turned, and sat. Seat 1A welcomed him with cool leather and air. He leaned back, fingers on his knees. Someone across the aisle cleared their throat, a subtle sound, loud in the quiet cabin. Sarah lingered, watching for cracks. But James didn't break. He'd faced questions in boardrooms, banks, and lobbies. This wasn't new. The uniforms and tactics varied, but the look and tone were the same. He gave her nothing. No smirk, no flinch, just silence. That silence made her shift. Sarah turned, muttered to the junior, and slipped into the galley. James sat still, the leather cool, the air dry. He knew this wasn't over. For people like her, a pass wasn't proof, a suit wasn't armor, and silence only made them louder. The overhead bin stood open, empty, waiting. James stood beside it, lifting his leather briefcase with both hands. It was heavy. Documents, tablet, contracts, a business person's burden. He was halfway to sliding it in when Sarah appeared, a shadow. "Sir," she said briskly, "keep that under your seat." James turned calmly. "The bin's empty," he said. "There's room." Her smile was cold, tight. "New FAA regulation," she replied, gesturing vaguely. "Bins close 10 minutes before prep. Safety protocol. Applies to everyone." He checked the time. Boarding had just begun. The bin was far from full, no bags or jackets. "You can place it at your feet," she added. "I'm sure you'll manage." She slammed the bin shut, the sound cracking like a gavel. Heads turned. Not many, just enough. A man in a blazer smirked 2 rows back. A woman glanced up, then away. No one spoke. James didn't argue or protest. He looked at the closed bin, then at Sarah, then lowered the case to his lap, fitting it beneath his legs. The edge dug into his knees. The leather creaked. She waited, expecting a reaction. Got none, then turned, heels clicking, posture proud, and vanished down the aisle. James leaned back. The cabin felt colder, not in temperature, but in people. He looked out the window, the tarmac glowing in late afternoon light, the sky orange, a view that should soothe. But a weight sat in his chest. He'd learned long ago that rules bend, just not for men like him. Less than a minute later, her voice returned. "Oh, no problem at all, Mr. Davis." James glanced over his shoulder. Sarah was back, smiling warmly, full of charm. She stood by a white man in his 50s, polo shirt, boat shoes, casual like he owned the plane. He fumbled with a worn carry-on. Sarah opened the same bin she'd slammed shut, lifted his bag gently, patted it, then giggled. "There we go, all set." The man chuckled, oblivious. Appreciate it, he said. First time in first class. You're in for a treat, Sarah beamed. Let me know if you need anything. James watched silently. No anger, no outburst, just a shift in his eyes. A sadness from recognition, not surprise. He didn't scoff or roll his eyes, just sat, his briefcase pressing into his legs, its weight deeper than leather and papers. This wasn't the first time, nor the last. The rulebook was written in invisible ink, one version for some, another for others. He looked out the window, the sun lower behind the wing. The light hit his face. For a moment, he closed his eyes. Not in defeat, but in memory, perhaps in preparation. This flight was far from over. 20 minutes into boarding, the cabin was nearly full. First class settled, coats folded, glasses clinking, seatbelts ignored, the murmur of elite travel before takeoff. Then came the click of heels. Sarah returned, clipboard in hand, smile fixed, eyes sharp beneath the sweetness. She stopped at James's row, 1A, leaned in. "Mr. Carter," she said, voice syrupy. "There's a mix-up. Your seat's double-booked. A last-minute upgrade." She flipped her clipboard, tapped the screen like it held truth. "We need you to move to 9C. Just a formality." James looked up slowly. "I booked the seat 3 weeks ago," he said, calm. "Paid in full?" "Ike." He pulled out his boarding pass, held it up. Sarah barely looked. "These things happen," she shrugged. "System glitch. Regulations say we follow the latest manifest." Her tone was sweet, her stance firm. James didn't move. He stared for a long second, then said, voice steady, "Check it again." Sarah exhaled sharply, tapped her tablet harder, as if force would change it. "Nope," she said. "Still shows 9C." She leaned in, voice low, sharp. "Let's not make this a thing. Grab your bag and follow me, please." People watched. The pinstriped suit man shifted, staring without staring. A woman in row 3 whispered to her husband. The Pearl Lady frowned into her wine. No one spoke. James stood slowly, not angry, just tall. His height filled the aisle. He held out the pass again. "Scan it here, now." Sarah's smile faltered. She snatched it, scanned it. Beep. James Carter. 1A green. Valid again. Her jaw tightened. She shoved it back. "Must be a mismatch," she said, voice tight. "But you need to move. FAA policy." James stood firm. "Show me the rule." Silence. Tension snapped like a rubber band. Sarah straightened, eyes flashing. "Move, or I call security," she said, loud enough. The words hit like ice water. The cabin froze. Every eye locked on him. Silent judgments behind polite faces. No one knew the truth, but they knew who looked like trouble. James took a breath, weighing options. Fight and make a scene. Refuse and be dragged. Stay seated for a headline, or stand on his terms. He chose the latter, slowly, with dignity, not shame. He grabbed his briefcase, straightened his jacket, faced the aisle. "I'll move," he said. "But I'm not wrong." Sarah said nothing, turned, and walked. James followed, past first class, past the whiskey-sipping man, past the woman clutching her bag tighter. Each step grew heavier, not from the case, but the room's weight. Row 9, middle seat, between a man in sweatpants, half asleep, and a woman with a designer-clad lapdog. Sarah stopped. "Here you go," she said brightly. "All set." James eyed the cramped space, nothing like his paid seat, but slid in quietly, setting his briefcase under with grace despite the humiliation. The dog barked once. The sweatpants man didn't stir. Sarah walked away. No apology, just heels clicking like a victory march. James leaned back. The tray table creaked. The cabin buzzed, but not around him. Just silence, speaking volumes. 30 minutes into the flight, James stopped watching the aisle, done tracking Sarah or first-class glances. He had work. He opened his laptop, hinge creaking, revealing a $300 million merger's numbers and text. He was heading to Chicago to seal it. Crammed between a snoring man and a whining lapdog, James focused. Block it out. Let them think they'd buried you. Keep building. His fingers danced across the keyboard. Steady. The screen glowed softly on his face. Then came wheels. A cart. Too close. Too loud. He didn't look up. Coffee? Sarah's voice, falsely sweet. He kept typing. Sure, Black, please. She leaned in. Too close. Her elbow jerked. The cup tipped, hot liquid spilling onto his thigh, laptop, keyboard. He gasped sharply. The heat burned through fabric. His skin stung. The laptop sparked, flickered, died. Sarah stepped back, as if jolted by turbulence. Oops, she said. Eyes cold, voice flat. Tight space back here. Passengers glanced over. The dog's owner gasped, clutching her pup. James sat still. Too long. Coffee soaked his slacks, scalding. Burnt electronics smelled sharp. Sarah didn't flinch, tossed napkins onto his tray. Here, she said, with the same fake warmth as from Mr. Polo Shirt. Clean up. She rolled away. No apology, no care. James breathed slowly through his nose. His hands shook as he dabbed the mess. Useless napkins. His thighs burned, laptop fried. Contract, spreadsheet, presentation. Gone. Passengers shifted, glanced, looked away. The snoring man slept. The woman held her dog tighter. James closed the tray table, creaking, and sat back, eyes closed, jaw tight. It wasn't an accident. He knew it. Her movement, her unblinking eyes. Sarah wasn't making a point. She was waging war. He opened his eyes, dried his hands, pulled out his phone, powered it on. Signal flickered. 1 bar, no Wi-Fi in row 9, a first-class perk. But James was ready. He activated the hotspot. The icon blinked red, then green. Weak but alive. The cloud synced slowly, files loading like hope. He propped the phone on the armrest, opened notes, rebuilt what he could. Quiet, focused. No scene, just survival. Coffee clung to his suit, burns throbbed. He typed, because men like him couldn't scream. Not here. He worked in silence. 30,000 feet below, lawyers waited. Sarah thought she'd broken something. She had, but not him. It began as a whisper. Sarah moved through the cabin, clipboard in hand, posture perfect, but her words weren't neutral. She paused by a woman in diamond earrings, leaned in, whispered like sharing a secret. Watch the man in 9C. He's unstable, got aggressive earlier. The woman stiffened, nodded. Sarah continued, row by row, tweaking her tail. To a businessman in 4A, he argued over seating, loud, intense. We're watching him. To a galley attendant, she sighed. Some think rules don't apply. Her words planted fear, sprouting fast at 35,000 feet. In row 9, James didn't know the details, but felt the shift. Eyes lingering with suspicion, not curiosity. The woman beside him used her dog as a shield. The sweatpants man squinted, brows furrowed, assessing what James had done. He'd done nothing, but Sarah had, and her whispers worked. Then a voice. Hey. James turned. A tall man in a navy blazer stood, arms crossed, jaw set, 2 others behind him. Cool it, he said. We're all trying to have a peaceful flight. James didn't flinch. I haven't spoken, he said, calm but firm. The man smirked. We heard about the coffee, the seating. You're causing problems. He stepped closer. Maybe you don't belong here. The words echoed, though not shouted. James met his gaze, but his mind drifted. A school hallway, his father by a chalkboard. Security called for a raised voice he never used. Removed, labeled aggressive, he came home ashamed. Decades old. But in this cramped seat, James felt that bruise swell. It wasn't new, a scar inherited. He breathed, held the man's gaze. "I'm in my seat," he said quietly. "Let me be." The man wanted to say more, but backed off, muttering. Sarah had one last move. She approached slowly, deliberately. Then, perfectly timed, she stumbled, her clipboard falling. She gasped loudly. "He grabbed me!" she cried, voice panicked, eyes feigning terror. The cabin froze. Gasps, whispers, phones raised. Sarah backed away, clutching her arm. "He reached for me! I told you he was unstable!" James stood halfway, stunned. "What? I didn't touch." The intercom crackled. "Security to row 9 now," the captain ordered. 2 officers appeared, swift, sure. One grabbed James's wrist, the other his arm. "Sir, stand up." "I didn't touch her," James said, voice steady. "She's lying." They didn't listen. Cuffs clicked. Tight. Cold. Familiar. They led him down the aisle he'd walked when Sarah took 1A. This was worse. A public execution. Eyes followed. Phones filmed. No one asked for cameras. No one questioned. Sarah stood by the galley, calm, almost proud. James met her eyes. She smiled. Her whispers poison, now louder. Led away, hands bound, dignity intact. James didn't yell. He thought of his father. Some legacies wait in silence to be broken. While the cabin watched James cuffed, another watched quietly. From the jump seat by the rear galley, Emily Chen sat frozen. She hadn't spoken all flight. Sarah's preference for juniors. Smile, nod, stay out of the way. But Emily saw it all. Sarah's smirk at James's arrival. The slammed bin. The fake seating glitch. The spilled coffee. The whispers. The false accusation. She'd had enough. As security marched James to the rear, Emily leaned forward, eyes on Sarah. She slid out her phone, against rules mid-flight, but her hands were steady. She opened the crew-only Airline app, accessed the camera log. Planes had them. Few checked. There. Sarah stumbling, screaming. James, unmoving. Emily hit record. She scrolled her photos, found one from 2 hours earlier. Sarah laughing with the blazer man, her smirk clear. She compiled it. Flight 227 witness package. Then she risked her job. She opened contacts, found Laura Bennett, a college friend and civil rights attorney who'd said, "If no one speaks, I will." Emily hadn't needed it until now. She attached the footage, photos, a message. He didn't do it. The lead attendant's lying. You'll want this. She hit send. Meanwhile, James sat in a fold-down seat by the lavatories, cuffed, isolated, humiliated. The engine's hum filled the silence. No one explained what was happening or where he was going. He looked at his hands. Cuffs cut his wrists. Sarah's words echoed. He grabbed me. He hadn't. He leaned against the cold wall, closed his eyes, breathed slowly. If this was how the world saw men like him, maybe nothing had changed. But Emily was moving. She copied files to a flash drive in her ID badge, just in case. As Sarah gloated silently up front, Emily watched, not with fear, but resolve. Truth had wings. The plane landed at O'Hare with a soft jolt. Unity Airlines, Flight 227. Passengers gathered coats and bags. But the real landing was behind the scenes. In a tarmac office, 2 supervisors watched a tablet. The footage played 3 times. Sarah's staged fall, her accusation, James unmoving. A passenger in a denim jacket by the lavatory spoke. She faked it, dropped the clipboard. He never touched her. She lied. 2 truths, 1 revelation hit Unity like a storm. Within 15 minutes, Sarah Thompson was suspended mid-shift, escorted off discreetly. She didn't speak, didn't look up. Her bun unraveled. In the terminal, news spread. The footage leaked, and within an hour, headlines exploded. Flight attendant caught faking assault on black executive. Truth lands at Unity. Passenger hero clears man's name. Questions arose. Why had Sarah pushed boundaries before? Why did complaints vanish? Who protected her? The answer: Richard Thompson, board member, shareholder, her uncle. He'd shielded her, until now. Under media and public pressure, he resigned that day for personal reasons. Everyone knew why. The cabin's silence turned shameful. Passengers avoided James's eyes, whispered, or stared at the floor. No one laughed. An announcement came: Mr. Carter, return to 1A. We apologize for the misunderstanding. The attendant, not Sarah, spoke with regret. All eyes turned. James stood, rolled his shoulders, said firmly, "Some seats aren't worth reclaiming." He wanted truth, and it had landed. He stayed in row 9 until the plane emptied, then walked into the terminal, briefcase in hand, suit coffee-stained, head high. Not angry, just done. He passed the gate silently, and the world followed. Headlines surged. Unity suspends attendant after scandal. Shareholder resigns amid fallout. James Carter speaks. But James didn't chase cameras, sue, or give sound bites. He walked into a boardroom, sold every Unity share, and left. No spectacle, just a vision. 3 weeks later, his new airline, Skyward, emerged. No legacy to fix, no silenced voices. Its tagline: where dignity always boards first. Skyward was built on equity, with diverse recruiting, blind hiring, and empathy training as a core value. One rule: respect flies first. James didn't do it alone. At Skyward's first briefing, he introduced his new chief of passenger experience in a sunlit room. Emily Chen, no longer a junior, now shaping treatment at 35,000 feet. When asked why her, James smiled. She did right when no one watched, and when everyone stayed silent. At Skyward's launch, James took the stage. No suit, no script, just presence. Cameras clicked, microphones leaned in. He faced press, partners, passengers, and said, "Power isn't proving you belong. It's creating a space where everyone does." Silence followed, the kind that signals change. James didn't just reclaim his name. He rewrote the rules, tore down walls, and built better. Not for revenge, but for those told, "You don't belong." The sky had room for all. The terminal buzzed. Suitcases rolled. Intercoms chimed. Coffee and jet fuel in the air. Gate 14 boarded Skyward Flight 101, Chicago to Atlanta. A 10-year-old boy clutched his boarding pass, walking slowly, eyes wide, shoes polished, backpack tight, skin dark, smile bright. Ticket for 1A. He bounced onto the jet bridge, first time in first class. A flight attendant greeted him warmly, kneeling to his level. "Welcome aboard, young man," she said, voice genuine, proud. The boy beamed, touching the leather armrest as he passed. Passengers smiled, not judging, but recognizing. Belonging. Outside, James stood by the terminal window, hands in pockets, suit simple, no fanfare. He watched the boy settle into the seat he'd fought for. No fight was needed now. He smiled softly, exhaling after a decade. This wasn't about a seat. It was ensuring the next boy wouldn't fight. A door was open, and it wouldn't close. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it walks quietly, head high. This wasn't just about racism, it was a reminder. When the world strips your dignity, you don't need to shout to prove your worth. James Carter won with patience, principle, and quiet strength, standing until truth caught up. He didn't change his seat, he changed the system. For everyone told, "You don't belong," this story's for you. Keep walking, watching, holding your head high. Justice flies silently but always lands. If this moved you, made you think or feel, share it. Hit like, share with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Story Hub for stories that light up dignity, justice, and the human spirit. Every click, share, and subscriber fuels us to tell stories that heal, empower, and remind us we're not alone. Thank you for joining us. Stay brave, stay kind, and never stop believing.